Okay, so you're here because you want to understand what's really going on with all these NFL quarterback moves.
Yeah, you want to cut through all that noise and figure out who's going where
Who's actually under pressure?
and what it all means.
It can be really hard to follow.
Yeah, it can be like a whole different language almost.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today.
We're going to translate all of it for you.
Exactly. We've got this really interesting discussion.
From YouTube.
Yeah, it's a breakdown of all these quarterback moves.
Well, we're going to dive deep into it.
Yeah, we're going to pull out the most important insights
about these potential quarterback changes.
And how teams are putting together their draft strategies.
Absolutely. So think of this as your guide to understanding the quarterback landscape right now.
Perfect.
So we're going to zero in on two big situations that are generating a ton of buzz.
Yeah.
The first one, Cam Ward potentially going to the Tennessee Titans.
Right.
And then that whole ongoing situation with Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And then after we look at those two big stories,
we're going to step back.
Yeah.
And look at the bigger picture.
Yes.
Of NFL quarterback strategy.
Okay.
The different ways that teams are trying to solve this problem.
Right.
And the urgency that's driving some of their decisions.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just jump right into it then with Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans.
Let's do it.
So our source features NFL Network's Jeff Darlington.
Okay.
And he uses a pretty strong word to describe the likelihood of Ward going to the Titans at number 1.
Oh, yeah.
He said it's likely.
Likely, huh?
Yeah, so that seems like a pretty big indicator.
Yeah, it is a really strong statement. And I think what's really interesting is why he says that.
Right.
So he's basically saying that Ward is really separating himself from the pack. Like in the eyes of the people who are actually making these evaluations, he's looking like the top quarterback prospect.
Okay.
And then you combine that with the fact that the Titans really need a quarterback.
Right, they've made that pretty clear.
Totally. And so it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like their need aligns with who they think is the best player available.
Now, another thing that was mentioned is that Ward actually didn't throw at the Combine.
Oh, right, right.
So for those who might not know, the Combine is this huge event where all these prospects show off their skills.
Yeah, it's like the biggest scouting event of the year.
Right, so that means that his pro day becomes even more important.
Right, because that's their only chance to see him throw.
Yeah, exactly.
So the pro day is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it seems like the general feeling is that his performance in college and all that film they have of him, that's already created a strong foundation for how they evaluate him.
Right. So the pro day can either confirm what they already think.
Yeah, solidify it.
Or maybe answer some specific questions that they have.
Exactly.
But it's all built on what they've already seen from him.
Exactly.
Now, Mike Tannenbaum, who's a former NFL general manager, was also part of this discussion. And he had some really strong opinions about Ward.
Okay, what did he say?
Especially when he was comparing him to Will Levis, who was in the draft last year.
Yeah.
He really didn't hold back.
Okay, I'm interested to hear this.
He said that Ward is demonstrably better than Levis.
Wow.
And he pointed to several reasons for this.
Like what?
He talked about Ward's size, his throwing mechanics, and his stats.
Which are pretty impressive, right?
39 touchdowns and only 7 interceptions.
That's a great ratio.
Yeah, and he also highlighted Ward's accuracy and his ability to anticipate throws.
Which is huge in the NFL.
Yeah, it's like a point guard in basketball who can pass the ball to where his teammate is going to be.
Exactly.
Not where they are at that moment.
Right. Anticipation is everything.
Yeah.
I mean, in football, it means throwing the ball before the receiver has even made their break.
Right.
You have to trust that they're going to be in the right spot.
Exactly.
And those are crucial skills for a quarterback to succeed at the highest level.
Definitely. Now, Tannenbaum did say that Ward might not be like a super elite athlete.
Okay.
Like some other quarterbacks are.
Right.
But he did say that he's a good athlete.
So how does that play into how teams evaluate him then?
Well, it's a really important distinction because, quarterback mobility is really important in today's NFL.
Oh, absolutely.
But if a quarterback has like enough athleticism,
right,
like they can move around a little bit in the pocket to avoid pressure and extend plays.
Yeah.
That might be good enough if they're really good at all the other stuff.
Right, if they can make good decisions under pressure.
Exactly.
And they have a strong arm.
And they're accurate.
Yeah, and it sounds like those are Ward's strengths.
They are, yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the other big story.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, so it was reported that Rodgers met with the Steelers for 6 hours.
6 hours?
Yeah, so that seems like a pretty serious sign of interest.
Yeah, I mean, you don't just spend 6 hours with someone unless you're really serious about something.
Right.
I mean, that suggests a lot of engagement.
Yeah.
That they're really trying to see if this could actually work.
Yeah, both sides would have to be digging deep into what it would look like if they actually partnered up.
Exactly.
But the most important part is that he left without signing a contract.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so Darlington pointed that out specifically.
That is interesting.
Yeah, it means that it was a very serious meeting.
Right.
But it's not a done deal yet.
Right. So there are still some things to figure out.
Yeah. Or maybe Rodgers is still thinking things over.
All right. He's got to weigh his options.
Yeah, and it's pretty remarkable how much secrecy there is around his decision.
I know, right?
Even people close to him don't really know what he's planning.
Yeah, he's keeping everyone guessing.
So it feels like Pittsburgh is the front runner right now.
It does, yeah.
But nobody's really ready to say for sure that that's where he's going.
Right, because we all know in the NFL, things can change so quickly.
Oh, yeah, in a heartbeat.
You can't say anything is inevitable until it actually happens.
Absolutely. And speaking of things changing quickly, our source mentioned that there's a lot of nervousness and angst surrounding the Steelers in this whole situation.
Oh, really?
Why do you think that is? I mean, if they're the front runner, why are they so nervous?
Well, I think it's because of how unpredictable the NFL is.
Right.
Like Tannenbaum used the example of Teddy Bridgewater's injury.
Yeah.
Like sometimes these totally unexpected things can happen.
And ruin all your plans?
Exactly. And also, all the other quarterback situations around the league are constantly changing.
Yeah.
So you never know when some other team might suddenly want Rodgers or when the Steelers' backup plan might fall apart.
Right. So until Rodgers actually signs a contract.
There's a ton of uncertainty.
Yeah. And the Steelers really need to get this figured out quickly.
Oh, definitely. They're in win now mode.
Totally.
They've got a great coaching staff.
They do.
And they've made some big moves to get talent like DK Metcalf.
And they already have George Pickens, who's amazing.
Right. So they have these dynamic receivers. But they desperately need a quarterback who can get them the ball.
Exactly.
And get the most out of that offense.
Yeah. They need someone who can come in and make a difference right away.
Right. Like Rodgers would be a huge upgrade if he's healthy and motivated.
Absolutely. And he would give them a real shot at competing for a championship.
No doubt about it.
And let's not forget, they have this amazing streak of not having a losing season since 2003.
That's right.
So there's definitely some pressure to keep that going.
Yeah, you don't want to be the team that breaks that streak.
No, you do not. So let's talk about that 6-hour meeting.
Okay.
They probably gave him a physical right.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But what else happens in a meeting like that when a deal doesn't get done immediately?
Well, they probably talked about the Steelers' offensive system.
Okay.
And their philosophy.
Right.
And what role Rodgers would play in all of that, how he would work with the coaching staff, what the team's expectations are, and of course the whole contract situation. So it's like a really thorough evaluation.
From both sides.
Yeah, to see if there's a good fit.
And the fact that they didn't sign a contract
suggests that maybe they need to talk some things over a bit more.
Right.
Or negotiate some details.
Now the Steelers can't wait forever for Rodgers to make up his mind right.
No, they can't. They have to have some other options.
And they mentioned Russell Wilson as a possibility.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so if the Rodgers thing falls through,
right,
they'd have to seriously consider other quarterbacks.
Makes sense.
And Wilson, despite his recent struggles in Denver, would still be a much better option than their current backup, Mason Rudolph.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
He's got that veteran experience.
Right. He's been a starter in the league.
Exactly.
So he knows what it takes.
Now, the way the Giants signed Jameis Winston was really different from this whole Rodgers situation.
Oh, so?
They did it really quickly.
Oh, wow.
It shows how teams can approach these quarterback decisions in very different ways.
Yeah, they definitely have different strategies.
And the Giants signing Winston so fast probably means they have a pretty clear plan for their backup quarterback situation.
Yeah.
And maybe they're still going to try to draft a quarterback too.
Possibly.
But it just shows how each team has its own needs and timeline and philosophy about quarterbacks.
Makes sense.
Now, speaking of the draft, our source talked about how the Steelers probably can't just rely on their pick at number 21 to find their quarterback of the future.
Oh, that's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, it is.
It's definitely possible to find a good quarterback outside of the top few picks.
You can.
But the chances of finding a truly great quarterback at number 21 are a lot lower.
Right.
So if they're really serious about finding their next franchise quarterback, they might need to be more proactive.
Like, what could they do?
Well, they could go after someone like Wilson if Rodgers doesn't work out.
Right.
Or they could maybe even try to trade up in the draft.
So that doesn't seem like something they usually do.
No, they haven't really done that much in the past.
Now, there was this really interesting point about the Giants potentially missing out on J.J. McCarthy in a previous draft.
Okay.
And this idea that there's no such thing as reaching for a quarterback if you're right.
That's a bold statement.
It is.
But I get it.
Yeah.
Because a great quarterback can completely change a team.
Absolutely.
And if you really believe in a quarterback, and you think he can be your franchise guy, then it doesn't matter where you draft him.
Right.
As long as he turns out to be as good as you thought he would be.
Exactly. We've seen teams like the Eagles move on from a highly paid quarterback.
Right.
Like Carson Wentz.
For Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and the Rams traded Jared Goff.
For Matthew Stafford.
Exactly.
So teams are willing to make big moves.
If they think they found a better quarterback.
Yeah, even if they've already invested a lot in the guy they have.
Right, and even the Falcons recently signed Kirk Cousins.
And then they drafted Michael Penix Jr.
Exactly. So they're not afraid to be aggressive.
And they're not letting past decisions hold them back.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's go back to the Steelers and their draft strategy.
All right, so they have a really consistent coaching staff.
They do.
And they haven't had a truly bad season in a long time.
Right. They've avoided those top 5 draft picks.
Yeah, but why wouldn't they trade up in the draft to get a quarterback?
Well, for a couple of reasons.
Oh.
First of all, they just haven't done that very often.
It's not really their style.
Right. It's not how they usually build their team.
Okay.
And second of all, it's not clear who they would even trade up for in this draft.
Right.
There are some good quarterbacks in this class.
There are.
But there are also some mixed opinions about the guys who aren't at the very top.
Right.
Like they mentioned Shitter Sanders and Jackson Dart.
Yeah.
And it's not like everyone agrees that they're going to be great.
So it might not be worth giving up a lot to get them.
Exactly.
So it's not just about wanting a quarterback.
Right.
You have to really believe in that specific quarterback and think he's worth what it would cost to trade up.
Yeah. You've got to give up draft picks.
Right. And probably pay him a lot of money.
Exactly like the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
They really believed in him.
And it paid off.
Big time.
But the Steelers might not have that same level of confidence in any of the quarterbacks who would be available if they traded up.
Yeah, it sounds like they're not sure.
And both the Giants and the Steelers have had chances to draft quarterbacks before.
But they still don't have their guy.
Yeah. So maybe they just haven't been convinced by any of the prospects they've seen.
That's possible.
Now, there was also talk about teams making big swings for quarterbacks behind the scenes,
Oh, interesting.
with the Giants and Steelers being mentioned as possibilities.
So what would a big swing look like?
Well, it would probably involve offering a lot of future draft picks
Okay.
and maybe even some current players
Wow.
to get a quarterback that they really want.
So basically a huge trade.
Yeah. It could be for a veteran quarterback. Or it could be a trade to move way up in the draft to get a rookie.
Right.
They even talked about offering massive amounts of compensation
Wow.
to convince another team to give up their quarterback.
That's crazy.
I know, but these kind of blockbuster trades don't happen very often.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk involved.
And the Rams were also mentioned as a team that might still be looking for a long-term quarterback.
Even though they have Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, it seems like the search for a franchise quarterback never really ends.
It's an ongoing process.
It really is. So to sum it all up for you,
Okay, let's do it.
what are the key things to remember from this deep dive into the NFL quarterback situation?
All right, so it's looking more and more likely that Cam Ward is going to be the #1 pick.
Going to the Titans.
Yeah, going to the Titans.
Okay.
The Aaron Rodgers situation is still up in the air,
Right.
but the Steelers are definitely feeling the pressure.
Yeah, they need to make something happen.
And overall, NFL teams are always trying to figure out how to get the best quarterback, whether that's through free agency or the draft.
Right.
And sometimes they have to make really big moves
Risky moves.
to get their guy.
Exactly. That's a great summary.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, what's the biggest risk a team can take when it comes to their quarterback situation?
That's a good question.
Is it being too patient and missing out on opportunities?
Yeah.
Or is it being too aggressive and maybe messing up their future for a quarterback who doesn't work out?
That's a tough one.
It is. It's something to think about as we get closer to the draft.
Definitely.
All right, so that's our deep dive into the NFL quarterback landscape.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah.